Welcome to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend Guard. I'm a law professor at Tulane University, and I just wanna quilt. So today we talked to Anne Vandermey. She is in Canada. She is awesome. She found us through the Tula Pink interview because she subscribes to the Tula Pink stuff. And she came to us, and she's now part of our Quilting Army. And she reached out, and we interviewed her, and she's awesome. She's great.
So my name is Anne Vandermey, and I'm calling from Beamsville, Ontario, Canada.
So awesome. And what's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
I've been thinking about that.
Yeah.
And I know my mom always used to sew my clothes when I was young because she found it hard to find stuff to fit me.
Why?
I was very tiny.
You were tiny. And so it was hard to find stuff for you.
It was hard to find stuff for me, and the stuff she could find was expensive. Mm-hmm. So she tended to sew a lot of my clothes. I don't know, but I think my brothers, it was easier to find hand-me-downs and stuff, but I'm the only girl, so.
Yeah.
So she'd sew my clothes, and my grandma would sew clothes for me, and yeah.
That's
and then
nice.
When I was about 10, I think, she taught me and my brothers one summer how to sew a drawstring bag. And then she decided instead of continuing to teach us to sew, she put us in sewing lessons.
Oh, and how did that go?
It went good. Me and my brothers both did a year, and then I continued for a couple of years.
Very cool.
And so we did a program called Kids Can Sew.
Oh,
and cool. I learned different things, and then when I graduated grade 8, I made my graduation dress.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yep.
That's super awesome.
Yeah.
And the sewing program, how often did you go when you were a kid to this program?
I think it was about once a week.
That's
and so we'd start at the beginning of the year, and we'd go into Hamilton and go to the sewing stores, fabric stores on Ottawa Street in Hamilton, which is has a number of different fabric stores. And we'd pick up fabric for our projects for the year. And then the subsequent weeks, we would learn how to sew different stuff we'd picked out. So
it's very cool.
We started in the basement of it. Yeah, it was really neat. My mom thought that everyone, we don't have a home ec course or anything like that in our school. So we wanted us to at least know the basics. And then when I was 12, my aunt lives in Vermont. So we went to visit her, and we went to the Vermont Quilt Festival.
You did? At 12? That would have been, magical, I would imagine. Was it a magical moment of, overwhelmingness?
It was really cool. And all the ladies loved it because I was 12, and there was this young girl.
Right.
Oh, she wants to learn how to quilt.
Right.
And that kind of when I got switching into quilting when I finished.
That's really interesting. So the influence, you could see the direct influence of a show and seeing sort of that thing. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
Yeah, because once I finished grade school, I haven't really sewn any clothing since. And I've switched mainly into quilting.
Interesting.
Bags, sewing, those sorts of things.
Right. That's really interesting. All right, so tell me so how did you find us? That's the first question. How did you find, and did you join us yet on the Facebook page? Do you do Facebook at all?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool. I do Facebook.
Awesome.
So I follow Tula Pink on social media.
Yeah.
And she shared the podcast that she and Mary Fawn.
They were great, right? I couldn't believe it.
And so I was like, oh, this sounds really interesting. And then the copyright angle caught my eye.
Oh.
Because my day job is a librarian.
Oh, really? How cool.
Yeah. And so we don't really, I work in a public library, so with our patrons, we don't, address copyright on a day-to-day basis, but it's kind of something
comes up, though. Yeah. It's just part of that world, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
very cool.
That So then I've been trying to catch up and listen to episodes, but
yeah, it's impossible, right? There's too many of them. I feel that way too. Because we do, so when we do the interviews, we interview, and then I listen to them at least once, sometimes twice, and I can't keep up. So.
I mean, it's fine. It's nice. I listen to podcasts in my car on my way to work, and when I'm sewing or those sorts of things. So
very cool. Well, I'm so psyched. This is so great. Okay, so tell me, what kind of things do you like to sew? What is your kind of, do you have a preference, or do you sew all kinds of things? What do you do?
I probably mainly right now am doing quilts or small quilting type projects. Mm-hmm. I sew with every now and again with a group of ladies, and so this sort of spring into the summer, we are doing like a small project that you could, in theory, finish in a day.
Oh.
So we'd sew it, someone would bring the project. So we did lug rugs and we did rope bowls.
Are you all doing the same project? Is like one person choosing a project, or are you all doing different projects?
Yeah. So in kind of the spring, summer, it was everyone, it's a project, and then you bring it to the group and we do it that day. And the theory was that you finish it and bring it home and you're done. You finish something. You don't have, because I tend to do big quilts and have trouble finishing.
Big quilts are hard to finish.
Big quilts are hard to finish. So it was nice to do a small project. We did like cozies for your drinks, so that in the summer cool. They don't get cold because we have warm summers here. So it's nice to have the cozy on your drink and stuff. So
very cool, awesome.
So I'm learning to do different things rather than just
flat
big
quilts.
Every time.
Big quilts, yeah. Interesting. Now, you said you were part of one of Tula Pink's, that you follow her on social media. How important is social media to sort of your identity as a quilter? Like, how much do you spend time listening or looking online?
I spent probably a decent amount of time. I was in Houston last fall, actually.
You were?
Very
cool. I wish you were coming. Are you going this year? You're not going this year?
No.
Oh.
No.
We'll have to get up to you.
We had a quilt in an exhibit.
You did? No way. What quilt did you have in an exhibit last fall?
So we had an exhibit called the Canadian Nine Patch. And there was 27 quilts, I think, and all had a 9 patch in there somewhere, and it was all about Canada.
That's so cool.
And so my mom has a quilt that was done. I have to get the dates right. I think it was my great-great-grandmother made it for her sister when she got married.
Wow.
And it's the only quilt we know that she made. And we got it back when kind of that family, the last member of that family, passed away. And my mom made a quilt that was using the same pattern, same colors as it, but she printed on fabric different pictures of the family and the sisters and kind of tied that in with the quilt.
That's really cool. And now were both quilts at Houston, or just the new one, or just the old one?
Both were in the exhibit.
That is so cool. So you have to come.
It was really cool.
Like your family quilt is there. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think?
So we went down to Houston.
You went down to Houston. And what did you think of it?
It was really interesting. We actually ended up going to both market and festival. My mom is sort of getting into a little bit of selling fabric and that sort of thing. So we were looking at the market side of things. And then we went to festival. And it was really interesting. It was overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. I think it's supposed to be on purpose, right?
At first, especially. Yeah. I've been to some quilt shows and festivals, but nothing that big.
Yeah.
So but it was really interesting, like kind of seeing the different types of quilts, the different types of booths and vendors, and like, I don't know.
It's really interesting. So I have 1,000 questions for you. Okay. So first, tell me a little bit about what your mom is doing online as a business. Is she selling fabric? Is that what you're saying that she's doing now? Yeah,
she hasn't gone online. She doesn't sell it online yet, but she's at a vendor in a quilt show a couple weeks ago.
Oh, interesting.
And so she had a mixture of like batiks and kind of called gradients, but like they go from light to dark for color. Right. Ombre.
Ombre.
And then she had some hand-dyed fabric, both kind of more solid colors, and shibori fabric that she sold as well.
That's really interesting. So, what made her decide to do that? And
I think for her, she was trying to find something that, to make a little bit of money to help offset the own fabric buying and stuff that we've been doing, and just trying something different.
That's really interesting. And so she's now doing it at different. Sorry, they're kittens being a little rambunctious. So how is it? So we have to talk to her too. So I'm really curious about the investment of that. That's how much, she got a wholesale license and she started to buy fabric, and sort of how much fabric did she buy, and how hard was it for her to start doing that? That seems like a big plunge of now I'm going to go buy a bunch of fabric and see if people buy it.
Yeah, it's been a learning experience. I can't say for her what her future plans are or that, but she's definitely learned a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Kind of going and that was one of the things about kind of going market and seeing what different companies' price points are, and some it's really easy to buy from, and some it's not.
Right, because they have the minimums, and that it's a bit of a problem. Did she buy her fabric at market when she went to market last year? Is that where she figured out what she wanted to buy, or did she do it some other way?
The connections she made were through market.
Interesting.
And then I believe what she did was she bought it and then had it shipped to my aunts in Vermont.
Right, that makes sense.
Because any time for buying fabric and bringing it back to Canada, if I were to just buy fabric from a store in the States and ship it back to Canada, I might have to pay duty.
Yeah.
And anything.
So is fabric then more expensive in Canada? Do you try to buy in? Now you live pretty close to the border.
I live very close to the border.
You're totally do you cross the border to go to the quilt shops? That's my big question.
We have. The big thing that I've done is, because I have an aunt that lives in the States, we go down
to the Vermont
a couple times a year, or they come up this way, and so I'll buy and ship to her place, and then we go and pick it up when we go for American Thanksgiving.
That's really nice. I like that. So, and Vermont and that area is such a big space for quilting that, that's awesome. You've got an opportunity to really see, I imagine. Now, do you have a favorite quilt shop in Vermont that you go to?
There's a couple that we go to. There's one called Yankee Pride, which is they call it in the middle of nowhere, but it's about 20-30 minutes from their place. Or we'll go to one where my aunt works in Middlebury, which is, again, bit of a drive from their place, but it's called Middlebury Sew and Back.
Now, what is your style? Do you like traditional or modern, or I always think of Vermont as very traditional, but I imagine I've got the wrong vision of Vermont. Am I right?
Well, it is more traditional. My style, I really like batik. And I like bright colors.
Interesting.
So I don't necessarily sew modern all the time. I belong to the Niagara Modern Guild, but I wouldn't necessarily class myself the entire time as a modern quilter. Yeah. But I like bright colors. So,
and what is it about batiks that you like? Tell me a little bit more about why you're drawn to them. And obviously your mom is too, because she's bought.
My mom is right. She's brought them in. I don't know. The first big quilt that I made, which was right before I went off to university, was out of batiks. And I think it's something about there's really good color saturation in batiks.
Yeah.
And I'm really attracted, I think, to things that have that color saturation.
Yeah.
And then just different designs and styles, and
it's just got a thing about it that you're attracted to. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I get it. Now I have to ask you a question. Since your mom bought all that fabric, Does she let you swipe some of it, or does she make you pay? And do you pay wholesale prices, or do you how does that whole relationship work when your mom bought a lot of fabric?
Yes. So my father's an accountant, so we figured out a deal, which is basically I pay the wholesale price.
The wholesale price. That seems reasonable.
Yeah. So if I want to buy some from her, then that's kind of how we figured it out.
Right. So she's not making money on you. She's just covering her costs.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable. That seems very reasonable. So. I wondered about that because I was like,
Yeah.
Yes, I would be like, I'd be taking too much stuff, I think. All right, so what's your favorite part of the quilting process?
I really do. I mean, I don't have anything at this stage yet, but I really do like to hand quilt.
You like to hand quilt?
I like to hand
Why?
quilt.
I've lost my love for hand quilt lately. I don't know why. What? I need to get it back. I have I start projects. I don't like them. I put them aside. Tell me why you like the hand. You like the hand piecing or hand quilting or both?
I like the hand quilting. So I machine piece everything, and I think I have 5 tops done. But I've never machine quilted anything.
Interesting.
I've always hand quilted, and I think it's something that I enjoy, in the evenings, watching TV, or just I find it really relaxing.
Yeah, it could be because I'm trying to do the hand piecing. I'm trying to do the English paper piecing, which I used to love to do, but right now I just have no patience. I find myself just irritated. I tried the glue. Have you ever done the English paper piecing? I hate the glue
I have
stuff.
A very ambitious project that I have 2 pieces done. So.
Yes.
That's not going anywhere fast.
Yeah, I know. I have lots of ambitious projects, and I think I don't know. I mean, I kind of enjoy it. I did the gluing on, people use glue now instead of, I did that in the car. That was great. That's a great car thing because, you don't stabbing yourself with needles or whatever. But I don't know. I have to I think I'm doing something wrong because I'm just not loving it. I used to love it. I don't think it's maybe too busy. I don't know. I don't know.
My mom taught me to quilt with hand quilting.
Yeah.
And then I know just about everyone that does machine quilt. And even my mom bought a long arm.
She did.
And so she did. And I basted a quilt for my cousin when they got married. But I hand quilted it.
That's interesting. Did you we got a long arm for the project. Did you like basting? Did it help to baste it? Did you like that process of basting it?
Yeah, everything else I've pin based.
Yeah.
And it
takes forever
exhausting.
And it's stressful, right?
And it's very hard on my back and stuff.
Yeah.
So
right.
It was 20 minutes.
I know, amazing, right? Yeah. Great. And you used the basting stitch and you just basted it and then it just it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So. That's kind of why we finally decided to get the long arm, besides experiencing and all of that. But putting the quilts together was so annoying, and this really takes that out of it. It just makes it easy, and there's no weirdness, and it's just easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Does your mom use the long arm? Does she actually use it? Use it, or
she has. Uh-huh. She's kind of practicing on it. We're doing renovations on our basement right now to kind of expand the sewing room.
Fabulous.
So the long arm is under sheets and stuff as my brother does the renos and takes the wall down. So
fabulous. That's cool.
Once that is done, the goal is to do more with it.
Interesting. Love it. That's really cool. That's good. Bigger spaces are good spaces. That's good. Yes, very cool. Now, do you go to shows up in Canada and near the Toronto area? What if so, which ones do you really like?
I haven't been to too many shows. There was one, Quilt Canada was kind of around us, but with my work schedule, it didn't work out go.
Got it. When is Quilt Canada? Is that in this? Do you know?
June.
Yeah, I think it's a June-ish thing. We had somebody else talk about it, and I love Canada. I love where you live.
It is a beautiful area. We're just starting to get into fall, so the leaves are just starting to turn right now.
Let's see, when is the show?
But I think it's around June.
Yeah, I can't find
Vancouver
it.
this year.
Canada.
So.
Let's see. Let's Quilt Canada.
But it depends. It's like this year was in Vancouver, so
it was in Vancouver. Does it move around?
Yeah, so
I can't find it.
Toronto.
Oh, it'll be in Ottawa in. What does it
next
say?
Year?
Next year. I haven't been to Ottawa.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's where I went to school. So.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I think it's in Ottawa. I'm doing a terrible job. April. It's in April 27th and 28th, 2019. Okay. And it is not telling me where it is. You seem to all know. Whatever website I got to, they all know where it is because they're not saying. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. So no one's saying September. I'm so confused. The Quilt Company show is in Ottawa in September. Oh, there's we missed it. What day? Today's not. The Yorkshire Rose Quilters Guild of Toronto had a show in Scarborough, Ontario, September 22nd and 23rd. We totally missed it. There's another one, an upcoming guild, Georgina Pins and Needles in Sutton, Ontario, on October 13th and 14th. Cool. All right, so now we know. There's like 3 shows coming up, but we still don't know when Quilt Canada is. I mean, where it is. All right. Anyway, so tell me about being a librarian. What kind of what do you do as your job?
So I work at a public library, and I work in our local history genealogy area.
Oh, you do? Very cool. Genealogy is like a thing. We're working with a group. My other life, we're working with a group that does genealogy. That's interesting. Yeah? So do you help people figure out, like, as a librarian, how much do you need to know about genealogy to help people? I imagine people come in super knowledgeable and then sometimes not at all.
Pretty much. So part of my job is I'm digitizing our local history material.
You are? Interesting.
The other time I'm in the local history room. And so we, as you say, we have our regulars that come in and they kind of know the room. And the other half, it's showing people what resources we have, where they can find like obituaries or how to find death records, what's available, what's not available, those sorts of things.
Very interesting. And in digitizing, are you taking into account copyright law for digitizing, or is there a special exception in Canada that allows you just to digitize everything?
No, we do have to take copyright into account, and we do. So some of it is like really old postcards or photographs. We ask people if they donate material to us if we can put it online.
Oh, that's great. So that you're getting it from the copyright holder. If they are the copyright holder, if it's their family stuff, then you have, as part of the donation, they either give you a license or assign copyright to you guys so that you can do that.
Yeah, there's stuff we haven't digitized because we know we don't have the copyright for, so it's very. There's stuff like the newspapers and that people always ask why we don't have them online, and that's because we don't have permission to put them up. And
they're still under copyright. Is that or you're not sure of the copyright?
Yeah, a bit of both, and it's tricky because, I think some of the copyright stuff between like Canada and the States is slightly different.
Very different. Yeah,
time period,
that's right.
And that, and some of it is you just kind of play a bit on the side of caution.
Yeah, interesting. I've done a ton of Canadian copyright. I do a lot of work on Canada, including the history of copyright in Canada. So you guys are, you've always been squished between the UK and the US, and we have very different feelings about it. And you are heroic you're heroic, Canada, because you stood up to the British when no one else was at the turn of the 19th to the 20th century. But you really did have it hard, especially with books. And, you know, the U.S. had, as you know, as a librarian, the U.S. didn't give foreigners copyright for a really long time. So we had all of these books that were floating about. And then the U.K. was like, no, you can't have those books. So your books have always been really expensive in part because of that. And that's not really fair, right? Like there's a kind of, anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there's, like, I think it's York University there's I don't know if you know Access Copyright in Canada.
No, tell me a little bit about, I might have, but I don't remember at the moment.
So Access Copyright is an organization that, like, you pay subscription fee to, like, universities pay, I don't know how much, probably thousands of millions of dollars. And then that kind of, they can track down who owns copyright of something, or, you know, they then pay.
Do you pay a licensing fee for them to use the material? Is that kind of what happens? Yeah, we have one of those too.
And so York University backed out of their Access Copyright and said, well, we'll figure copyright out on our own. And Access Copyright sued York University.
Really? And what happened?
And I think right now the courts are saying that Access Copyright is in the right, New York is in the wrong.
Really?
But it's still working its way through the system.
So interesting. We have similar problems here of universities not wanting to go with the CCC license and deal with all of that. So yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And the universities are getting sued for for taking it into their own hands. It's like Georgia State, same sort of situation. So interesting. Wow. Yeah. Copyright's complicated. But we're trying to work on a project for quilters and copyright. And I'm finding, first, I'm really finding that by diving in so deep to quilting, that it's changing my perception of copyright dramatically, which is really interesting. That all the laws I teach every day aren't quite exactly, I mean, they are, but they're not, right? Like, that's what's so interesting. So, having these conversations are really, it's fascinating. It's sort of, it's really different.
It's such I mean, quilting and I think any sort of craft, like I crochet as well, it's so murky with copyright.
Yeah.
Like, you have so many people who don't know anything about it. But you have so many things that are so old and so traditional with
right
the crafts that at some point it's like, where does the copyright begin and where?
Right, and where does it end and where does it begin, and how much should it? When does it matter? When should it influence what you're doing at home or whatever?
And like, I can look at, you know, I can figure out a pattern. My dad, I blame it on my dad, but he's an accountant. He's very mathematical, and so I've been given some of that ability, or I have some of that math, I guess, in me. And so I can look at something and go, okay, so if I do blocks that are 6.5 inches and I throw 2-inch sashing on, then these are the, you know, amount of fabric that I need and the cuts that I can make. And I did a quilt that was 6.5 inch by 10.5 inch rectangles with 2-inch sashing in between. But if you can figure out the math, I don't see that as a copyrightable pattern in one sense, because it's just rectangles and
you can see the math. That's right. So. Well, what we're trying to figure out is like, well, like this, that math isn't protected. We know that. Yeah. We know recipes aren't protected. That's easy. But when is a pattern more like art than it is like a recipe? And it's not obvious. So I'm getting more to the belief that the directions are more like the computer codes that are protected than they are the recipe that's not protected. I'm not sure, though. That's kind of where I'm at. But, yeah, so, and reverse engineering is okay, right? So we're not, you know, the question is, at what point will the court, if someone sued you, at what point is the court going to say, yes, those are similar, right? So, and that's pretty far off.
And even if I can figure out a pattern, I don't think it's right for me to turn to someone else and say, here's how you do this pattern.
You don't think it's okay to communicate how you, if you figure it out, it's kind of just it's like the puzzle. You figured out the puzzle, you shouldn't share the puzzle with other people. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Like you have your half square triangles and your,
right,
squares and rectangles and those sorts of shapes and stuff.
Right.
And so I don't know if I can look at something and figure it out, then I'd go to 10 of my other friends and go, hey, instead of buying the pattern,
right, it's the instead of. And is it
on
a moral level? Do you have a sense that like that's taking money out of the like why wouldn't you do that?
I don't. It may be a bit on a moral level. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I feel like it's not fair for the pattern holder. I don't know. Maybe it's not fair for the pattern holder if I can figure it out, but it's not fair for the pattern holder if someone else can't figure it out.
Right, you should let them buy the pattern, and just because you figured it out doesn't mean you should ruin it for everybody. Like the magician thing, right? Like just because you know how the trick is, you shouldn't like ruin it for everybody else, right? Yeah.
And I freely say I haven't figured out triangle math yet, so I'm not looking at really complicated quilts and going, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
Like,
right. So it seems like patterns as you go are either because you're a beginner, don't know how to do anything, and it's teaching you stuff, and then as you get more mature, it's either laziness, or you support the pattern maker, or you just don't want to. I think laziness. I mean, I think okay, well, sure, I'll do that. That's easy. I could figure it out on my own, but they've already done all the math for me, so why not? So. So cool. Well, this is super great. Okay, so you're now part of the Quilting Army. Do you know what the Quilting Army is? Have you figured out what we do? Is it confusing coming in at this point?
It's not too bad.
Cool.
I mean, it's really neat to see other people share their projects and what they've made, and to know that like if I have a question about something, like I haven't done it yet, but like if I have a question about something, to know that I can ask other people.
Totally, everybody can ask. That's right, and we want to see what you're doing and hanging out and going on adventure. Yeah,
it's like a really massive online quilt guild that you're not allowed to be mean at.
That's right. And it doesn't have a lot of logistics. There's always a lot of like there's no there's not a lot of, there's a little bit of chaos, but I kind of enjoy chaos.
Yes.
So I like the kind of controlled chaos, I guess. Cool. We're also going to start going to different quilt shows. So this is our idea, is like if you want to go to a quilt show, that you represent us at the quilt show. So like we're going to have t-shirts, like there's a t-shirt company, and we can like just get the t-shirts online, or you can make your own. We're going to put up the embroidery pattern. Like we're very decentralizing the logo, which is like a really big thing because I'm a IP professor. You have to still keep control over it, so you keep your mark. That's what but we're really letting people do whatever they want with the mark with some parameters, like the colors and put it on black or white, but sort of go for it. So we're going to try to have all of you, because that's coming from the Army, go to other shows, either with a booth or as press to report on it. So I'm pretty psyched about this. So that's the goal. I think that's our 2019 goal, is like how many shows can we get to that we can, recruit for the Quilting Army and the podcast, but also just experience it, because I think it would be really interesting to see. And it would be great as your mom goes, because she's like a new vendor at quilt shows. So I'm really curious how she does. So you have to have her come on the show. Come with her, like sign up again and bring your mom with, and we'll chat about it, because it would be great. I'd be really interested to see her journey too.
It's a whole other dynamic quilt show. Like there's
a whole thing.
It broadens the experience too. And like my dad helped my mom at the sale, and so he's starting.
That's so
we
nice.
keep joking that in his retirement we're going to get him quilting.
That's great.
But he's commenting like at the quilt show they went to. He goes, Well, I didn't like that none of the quilts had, none of them had a thing on it that said who made the quilt.
No labels? No labels.
No labels or anything on it. He goes, I don't like that, because then you don't know what the story is behind it, or like who made it, or
labels are important. Thinking. There's a big movement for labels. It's important. Now, do you put labels on your quilts?
I try to, yeah.
Yeah,
so
you do.
My mom knows how to. She uses bubble jet set to turn fabric so you can run it through your printer.
Right, because she did all that stuff with your family pictures.
Yeah. So I print all my labels.
Oh, that's really good. I have not labeled stuff because I'm very I don't really know. I mean, I will because there's a lot of people get mad at me for that. But I am a bit shy about it. It's pretty funny that sort of taking that step of claiming that is hard for me. I don't know why. I think I want it anonymously out there of who made this weird thing. I don't know. Yeah. You know that weird quilt? So here's the thing. My neighbor, Judy, has this really weird orange quilt that is just weird. It's so weird. And they don't know who made it. And that's kind of good. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be oh, that quilt was made by...
Oh, she made that.
You know?
I've done a lot of labels because I've given a lot of things away.
Yeah.
So I've given stuff either as wedding gifts or baby gifts.
Yeah.
And so
that's a bit different, you think? That it's about... And you make big quilts too, right?
I've made big... I mean, I made a lot of lap quilts when friends got married after university. And then I put the label on with their name, with their wedding date.
Oh, that's nice. That's different. I guess that's really different. Yeah. Mine are weirdo, practice quilts that, nobody should know were mine. So, that they should be used for, I don't know, repairing bikes or something like that. I don't know. They're not worthy of a label, which I know is totally wrong, and I will label. I promise. I label. But at this moment, I'm a bit shy about it. I think it's just my shyness about my own quilting,
Yeah. Yeah, and it makes it easier for me. I don't like handwriting on labels.
You don't. And you're also taking all the time to hand quilt them, and you probably have a lot of pride, and I don't feel the pride all the time. I think that's part of the problem. I think, the labeling has to come. Yeah. That you have to be comfortable. But I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Part of it is I quilt really late at night, so usually they're there's a lot of, I don't know. It's not it's almost like drunk quilting, I think. If you quilt so late that you're so tired, it's a little bit like drunk quilting. So.
Yeah, I did a quilting retreat, and the later you sew at night, the more mistakes you make.
The more mistakes you make. The more you look in the morning and go, what were you doing? You should have just gone to bed. What is that about? Right?
Yeah.
It was so funny when I was pregnant with my kid. My mom, I used to do tons of cross stitch with my mom, and we were at the hospital, and I'm like, hey, I think I messed this up. Can you take a look at it? Because I hate ripping out. And she just looked at it, and she's like, what have you been doing? It was all off. There were so many mistakes. I just was so not in my right space. It was hysterical. It was just I don't know. It was just a lot of mistakes. So.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I always start a project, and I'm like, oh, I haven't made any mistakes yet. And then the more I sew for the day, the more you're ripping out because you're tired.
And do you rip them out when you get the mistakes? That's the thing. Is is the time of So
I have real trouble with what my mom calls creative design changes.
Really, you have trouble with it. You want it to be the way you want it to be.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I did one quilt and I sewed half the blocks wrong, and instead of doing a creative design change, I ripped it all out and did it again.
See. Yeah, I usually am creative design change. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah, when I was a kid, I would be so it doesn't look right. It's supposed to be house, but now it's person. It would be really anything I could do to not rip out. But usually that doesn't work at all because you end up ripping out anyway. So it's just you're or throwing it out, throwing projects out that don't work. But I don't know. Well, we have to Vermont. So so you hang out in Vermont sometimes. So that's good. And we have to get you out on the road. We got to get you on the road doing stuff. It'd be great. Now, when's your sign up again so we can chat with your mom and sign up with her. It would be great. And your dad if you want. Yeah. The whole family can be on. It would be interesting to figure out. I'd like to know more about sort of her business and what they're doing. And then if you go on adventure anywhere, or if you want to chat more, or something happens, just sign up again. So you're part of our Quilting Army now, and I'm so psyched. We have to get to Canada. Canada, like, there's a lot going on there. We need a field trip to Canada.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because, like, when we were in Houston, we talked to someone, and they're like, "Oh, my son's always wanted to go to Canada." Or they say something like,
and we're very romantic. Like, so people romanticize Canada because we're having some problems here in this country, right? So we're now more like pro, like, if only we lived in Canada, right? So we're going to be all racing to the border in Canada. When we lived in, this is a ridiculous story. So we lived in London for a year, and then we went to visit in France with our little 3-year-old at the time. And everyone, because we were really nice all the time, people thought we were Canadian. And we didn't, like, correct them. We were, like, fake Canadians for, like, a year. We're like, oh, yes. We were, like, trying to, like, get a Canadian accent, you know? Talk about donuts. I don't know.
I went to New Zealand and Australia in March, and I sewed a Canadian flag onto my backpack.
You did?
Like, I'm
from Canada, not the United States. Don't mistake me for someone from the United States. Oh my gosh, so funny. Yes, we were fake Canadians for a whole year. People were always like, "Oh, where are you from in Canada?" We're like, "I don't know."
Well, and you can pick anywhere because people are like, "Oh," someone at Houston said, "Oh, like, you know, for the Portland market, like you'll be
close, right?
You'll be close," and we're like,
no, not even a little bit. You are very far away from that. Oh my goodness.
Very, very, and they're like, "Oh," and it's like, Canada's really big.
Canada's really big, very big, right? Very, very big.
It's just about cheaper for us to fly to Europe from Toronto than it is to Vancouver sometimes.
That's craziness, right?
It's crazy.
That's craziness.
Crazy.
This is really fun. I'm so glad you signed up. I'm so glad you joined the Quilting Army. Spread the
I'm
word.
Glad I found it.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
This is great. Well, keep, post online, post at the Facebook group, and just be part of it because that's what's fun. And then we're going to be doing more stuff. So this is an experiment. This is from the university. It's an experiment to really try to sort of see, first just to quilt and have fun and make new friends, but also sort of see what we can do. Like, what can us regular quilters do in our world? And it's really about us. And sometimes I felt like the dialogue wasn't about us. It was about, we have fancy people on, don't get me wrong. And the fancy people are rocking, and I love them, and they're amazing. I love them. I love them. But also this really is about us. So, you know.
And it's been interesting, like, even at work, finding out, I have coworkers that quilt, and things that, they've introduced me to stuff, and I've introduced them to stuff. And
so
it's
great.
really fun.
That's so great. Well, welcome. Welcome to the Quilting Army. We need badges or something,
Yeah.
Super great. Okay, let's chat soon again. So come on in, and sign your mom up with her because I think it would be really. I'm really serious about that because I'm really curious about sort of her because we're way into quilt entrepreneurs, and one of the things we're trying to do again for 2019 is how do we help entrepreneurs in terms of whatever they need. So we're trying to understand what those needs are, and I'd be really interested in all that. It'd be great.
Well, and she roped me into quilting.
She roped.
So I can rope her into something as well.
Totally.
And,
I like that. I like that. Yes, fair play. Fabulous. All right, I hope you have a super great day. And thanks again for chatting and spending time with me this morning. It's super great.
Thanks.
All right.
It's been a lot of fun.
Fabulous. All right. Bye. So this is Elizabeth Townsend Guard. You've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. We want to hear from you. Join our army, our quilting army. Go to our Facebook page. Suggest people